The quantum tunnel exit always made Marcus Chen's stomach do things that violated several laws of physics. As the diplomatic cruiser Unity's Dawn materialized in Zephyria Prime's orbit, he pressed his face against the viewport and tried not to think about how his molecules had just been scattered across 17 dimensions and reassembled like cosmic IKEA furniture. "First time through quantum fold?" asked Captain Rodriguez, grinning at Marcus's greenish complexion. "Third, actually. Still feels like my liver is in a different time zone." The planet below sparkled like someone had bedazzled a sapphire. Twin suns cast everything in shades of gold and amber, while crystalline cities caught the light and threw it back in prismatic displays that probably violated several intergalactic safety codes for epilepsy prevention. Marcus straightened his diplomatic uniform, the one with enough medals and ribbons to fund a small space station. 6 months of preparation had led to this moment, humanity's first formal cultural exchange with the Zephyrians. Simple stuff, really. Shake hands, exchange gifts, sign some papers, maybe sample their cuisine without dying. The shuttle bay doors hissed open, revealing a welcoming committee that looked like elegant humans who'd been stretched through a funhouse mirror and given ears that could double as satellite dishes. The Zephyrians' pointed ears twitched and swiveled with their emotions, currently displaying what Marcus hoped was polite interest and not predatory hunger. High Counselor Lyrale approached with fluid grace, her silver-tipped ears perfectly still in diplomatic neutrality. "Ambassador Chen, welcome to Zephyria Prime. Your arrival brings great joy to our people." "The honor is mine, High Counselor." Marcus executed what he hoped was an acceptable bow, having practiced it approximately 3,000 times during the 6-month journey. The formal ceremony passed in a blur of crystal chimes, harmonic frequencies that made his teeth itch, and the consumption of fermented kelp wine that tasted like someone had dissolved fish food in champagne. Marcus smiled, nodded, and tried to remember which hand gestures meant peace and which accidentally declared war. "Now," Lyrale said as they settled in her ornate office overlooking the crystal spires, "we must discuss the integration protocols." "Of course, I have the cultural exchange documents right here." No, the marriage protocols." Marcus paused, his glass of kelp wine halfway to his lips. "I'm sorry, the what protocols?" Lyrale's ears perked forward with what seemed like genuine confusion. "The marriage laws, naturally. According to Zephyrian Statute 847C, recently amended for interspecies relations, every male from allied worlds must take 3 Zephyrian wives to ensure genetic and cultural harmony." The kelp wine went down the wrong way. Marcus spent the next 30 seconds making sounds that probably qualified as a new form of interpretive music on Zephyria. "I'm sorry," he wheezed. "Did you say marriage?" 3 marriages specifically. It's quite an honor." "There must be some mistake. I'm here for diplomatic relations, not marital relations." Lyrale consulted a crystalline tablet that hummed with soft light. "Ambassador Marcus Chen, male, single, age 32, no genetic incompatibilities listed. Everything appears in order." "But I never agreed to." "The law is quite clear. All treaties include binding cultural integration clauses. Your Earth Council signed the document 6 months ago." Marcus fumbled for his communication device, a sleek Earth tech marvel that looked primitive compared to Zephyrian crystals, but could supposedly punch through solar interference and quantum static. He stabbed at the emergency contact for Earth Command. Static. He tried again, more static. Having difficulties. Lyrale inquired politely. "The communication array." "Ah yes, we're experiencing minor solar storm interference. Should clear up in a few days, perhaps a week." "A week. 2 at most." The twin suns create fascinating but unpredictable electromagnetic cascades, quite beautiful actually. You'll have plenty of time to appreciate them with your new wives. Marcus stared at the device as if he could will it to work through sheer panic. "High Counselor, surely you understand this is highly irregular." On Earth, marriage is a personal choice, not a diplomatic requirement. How fascinating, such an individualistic approach. Here, marriage strengthens the community bonds. 3 wives ensure genetic diversity, emotional stability, and proper household management. Very efficient. But I don't know anything about Zephyrian courtship, or marriage customs, or, Marcus gestured helplessly, or how to be married to 3 people simultaneously. Lyralay's ears tilted in what Marcus was beginning to recognize as amusement. Don't worry, Ambassador. We've selected 3 excellent candidates. They're quite excited to meet you. They know about this already. Of course. The selection process began the moment your ship entered our system. Very thorough psychological and compatibility profiles. I'm confident you'll find them suitable. Marcus sank deeper into the crystalline chair, which helpfully adjusted to his stress levels by becoming softer and somehow more supportive. Even the furniture was conspiring against his diplomatic training. What if I refuse? Refuse? Lyralay's ears pricked forward sharply. But that would violate the treaty. The alliance would be compromised. The way she said, compromised, made it sound like it might involve explosions and interdimensional incidents. So my options are marriage or interstellar war. Oh, nothing so dramatic. Simply the complete dissolution of Earth-Zephyria relations, trade embargo, and possible reclassification of humans as culturally incompatible for future contact. Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling a headache that transcended normal pain and entered realms of cosmic significance. When do I meet them? Tomorrow morning. The ceremony of introduction is already planned. Such excitement. As if summoned by cosmic irony, his communication device finally crackled to life. Ambassador Chen, this is Earth Command. Please confirm your status. Marcus looked at the device, then at Lyralay's expectant expression, then at the twin suns setting over a world where he was apparently about to become a trigamist. Earth Command, he said slowly, I'm going to need you to check the fine print on that treaty. Sir, all of it, especially the parts about marriage. Static answered him, followed by Lyralay's gentle laughter, a sound like crystal bells in a solar wind. Marcus had spent the night in what Lyralay cheerfully called the prematrimonial suite, which featured a bed that monitored his stress levels and kept adjusting its firmness based on his anxiety spikes. By morning, the mattress had achieved the consistency of reinforced titanium. The ceremony of introduction took place in the Crystal Amphitheater, where approximately 300 Zephyrians had gathered to witness what Marcus could only describe as the universe's most elaborate blind date. Their ears created a sea of subtle movements, like a wheat field in an electromagnetic breeze. Breathe, Ambassador, Lyralay murmured as they walked down crystalline steps that chimed musical notes. You look like you're about to face execution. Aren't I? Don't be dramatic. Zephyrian marriage ceremonies are quite pleasant. We only sacrifice fruits. Marcus wasn't entirely sure she was joking. 3 ornate chairs waited on the central platform, each occupied by a woman whose ears told different stories. Marcus's diplomatic training kicked in. Assess, analyze, don't panic. Your first wife, Lyralay announced with ceremonial grandeur, Dr. Zara Moonwhisper, senior xenobotanist of the 3rd Crystal Spire. The woman who bounced to her feet had ears that flushed deep purple with excitement. Her hair was woven with tiny flowering vines that seemed to pulse with their own bioluminescence. She practically vibrated with enthusiasm. Ambassador Chen, how absolutely fascinating. A genuine Terran male specimen, person. Human, sorry, occupational hazard. Zara's ears cycled through several shades of purple. I've studied your species' botanical interactions for years. Did you know earth corn and Zephyrian crystal moss might create hybrid crops that photosynthesize in 7 dimensions? I didn't know that was possible. It probably isn't, but imagine if it were. She pulled out a small crystalline device and scanned him enthusiastically. Oh, wonderful. Your pheromone signature suggests excellent compatibility with luminescent fungi. We'll have such interesting gardens." Before Marcus could ask what exactly that meant, she had already collected a small sample from his sleeve with a device that looked like a cross between a medical scanner and a butterfly net. "Your second wife," Lyreley continued, apparently unmoved by Marcus's growing expression of cosmic bewilderment. "Commander Kestra Starford, Strategic Defense Coordinator." The second woman stood with military precision, her silver-tipped ears remaining perfectly motionless. Everything about her suggested she could disassemble a plasma rifle blindfolded and probably had. Her handshake could have crushed meteorites. "Ambassador, I've reviewed your file. Adequate diplomatic training, substandard physical conditioning, no tactical experience. We'll need to address these deficiencies immediately." "Deficiencies?" "A husband must be capable of protecting his family unit. Your current physical parameters suggest you couldn't defend against an aggressive houseplant, let alone actual threats. Are there actual threats I should know about?" Kestra's ears tilted slightly, perhaps amusement, possibly disdain. "There are always threats, Ambassador. The universe is a hostile environment. We'll begin combat training tomorrow at dawn." "Combat training?" "Basic survival protocols. Hand-to-hand combat, plasma weapon proficiency, strategic thinking exercises, standard matrimonial preparation." Marcus was beginning to suspect Zephyrian marriages operated more like military alliances than romantic partnerships. "And your third wife," Lyreley announced with obvious delight, "Pip Starlight, master artist of the Prismatic Guild." The third woman was already giggling, her rainbow-colored ears shifting through a spectrum that would have made Earth's Aurora Borealis jealous. She looked younger than the others, with paint-stained fingers and eyes that sparkled with mischief. "Hello, husband-to-be." Pip's ears flashed bright gold with amusement. "This is the most wonderfully ridiculous thing that's ever happened. I've been documenting your facial expression since yesterday. You have 17 different variations of confused panic. Very artistic." She waved her hand, and holographic sculptures appeared in the air around them. Perfect three-dimensional captures of Marcus's various states of bewilderment from the previous day. The audience burst into harmonic laughter that made the crystal walls ring like bells. "I particularly like this one," Pip continued, manipulating a hologram of Marcus mid-kelp wine-choking incident. "I call it Diplomatic Crisis in B minor. It's going to be part of my new exhibition on interspecies comedy. You've been recording me. Everything's art if you look at it right. And you, Marcus Chen, are a masterpiece of cultural confusion." Her ears cycled through the entire rainbow spectrum. "Don't worry, I only share the flattering panic expressions with the public galleries." Marcus looked around the amphitheater, where hundreds of Zephyrians watched with polite interest. Their ears created a constantly shifting pattern of emotional colors and movements, some amused, others curious, a few skeptical. "So," he said carefully, "when exactly does the actual marriage happen?" "Oh, we're married now," Zara said cheerfully, her ears brightening to magenta. "The moment you accepted the introduction ceremony. Very efficient." "But I didn't accept anything. Your presence here constitutes acceptance under Zephyrian law," Kestra explained with military matter-of-factness. "Attempts to flee the ceremony would indicate rejection, which didn't occur." "Because no one told me I could flee." "Would you have?" Pip asked, genuinely curious. Her ears had settled into a thoughtful silver blue. Marcus opened his mouth to say yes, absolutely, he would have run screaming to the nearest quantum tunnel. But looking at the three women, Zara's enthusiastic scientific passion, Kestra's protective competence, Pip's infectious joy, he found himself uncertain. This is all happening very fast." "The best adventures usually do," Pip said, conjuring a new hologram that showed the four of them standing together, her artistic interpretation adding dramatic lighting, and what appeared to be epic background music visualized as color streams. "Don't worry," Zara added, her ears returning to excited purple. "We have years to get to know each other properly. I've prepared a comprehensive botanical tour of the planet. We'll start with the carnivorous gardens tomorrow." "After combat training," Kestra inserted firmly. "And I'll document everything for my new art series. My alien husband's adventures in not dying," Pip concluded happily. Marcus felt another headache approaching, this one with cosmic implications. What have I gotten myself into? The three women exchanged glances, their ears creating a synchronized pattern of colors that somehow managed to convey fond exasperation. "Marriage," they said in unison, and the entire amphitheater erupted in harmonious laughter that made the twin suns seem to twinkle in response. Marcus discovered that having 3 wives meant his schedule was now managed by committee, a very enthusiastic, occasionally dangerous committee. "Combat training begins at dawn," Kestra announced over breakfast, which consisted of protein cubes that tasted like cardboard but allegedly contained 17 essential amino acids unknown to Earth biology. "Botanical expedition at mid-morning," Zara added, her ears glowing with anticipation. "The bioluminescent forests are particularly active during the solar convergence." "Art appreciation in the afternoon," Pip chimed in, creating tiny hollow. Dawn on Zephyria Prime meant twin sunrises that painted the sky in colors Earth didn't have names for. Kestra led him to a training facility that looked like it had been designed by someone who thought regular gyms weren't sufficiently likely to cause interdimensional incidents. "Basic defensive stance," she instructed, her ears locked in Sirius silver. "Zephyrian gravity is 1/3 times Earth standard. Your muscle memory needs recalibration." Marcus attempted what he hoped was a defensive stance. His body had other ideas. "You look like you're trying to hug an invisible enemy," Kestra observed. "This won't work if someone attacks you with actual malevolent intent." "How often does that happen?" "More than you'd expect. Politics here can get energetic." She demonstrated a basic block that somehow involved spinning through dimensions Marcus couldn't see. When he tried to copy it, he ended up facing the wrong direction entirely and somehow blocking an attack that hadn't happened yet. "Interesting," Kestra mused, her ears tilting thoughtfully. "You may have accidentally discovered temporal combat techniques. We'll work with that." By mid-morning, Marcus had learned 17 different ways to defend himself from attacks occurring in parallel timelines. He was developing a headache that existed in 3 dimensions simultaneously. Zara rescued him with characteristic enthusiasm, her ears practically strobing with excitement. "Ready for the forest expedition? I brought snacks." She held up what looked like a tackle box full of crystalline instruments and possibly small explosives. The bioluminescent forest existed in a state of controlled chaos. Trees pulsed with rhythmic light, flowers sang in harmonics that made Marcus's teeth itch, and small creatures that resembled flying jellyfish provided ambient lighting by glowing different colors based on their emotions. "Fascinating ecosystem," Zara explained, her ears cycling through enthusiastic purples and research-focused blues. "Each species here communicates through bioluminescence. Watch this." She touched a flower that immediately blazed bright orange and began singing what sounded like opera. Every other plant in the vicinity joined in, creating a botanical chorus that was either beautiful or the plant equivalent of a fire alarm. "What did you do?" "I may have accidentally told it that I found it attractive," Zara admitted, her ears flushing embarrassed pink. "Plant courtship here is very demonstrative." The entire forest section was now glowing and singing love songs. Small flying creatures began performing what appeared to be synchronized aerial dances. Even the rocks started humming. "Is this normal?" "Define normal," Zara said cheerfully, taking readings with several crystalline devices. "Oh, wonderful, the resonance cascade is spreading. This could create a bioluminescent breeding cycle 3 months early." Marcus watched trees propose to each other through interpretive light displays. Should we be concerned? Only if you're allergic to pollen. Zephyrian plant reproduction involves a lot of airborne particles. A cloud of glittering spores descended on them like romantic snow. Marcus sneezed, and his sneeze somehow translated into plant language as an enthusiastic mating call. The forest singing reached operatic crescendo. "Run," Zara advised calmly. They ran, pursued by aggressively amorous vegetation, until they reached the city limits where Pip waited with artistic supplies and barely contained laughter. "I recorded the whole thing," she announced happily, her ears rainbow cycling with glee. "Marcus accidentally starts forest orgy is definitely going in my exhibition." "Please don't title it that." "Fine. Human diplomat discovers advanced botanical communications." But the subtitle is definitely a love story. Her art studio occupied 3 floors and 2 parallel dimensions. Paintings hung in space without frames. Sculptures existed in states of controlled temporal flux, and the walls themselves seemed to be canvases that changed based on viewer emotion. "Zephyrian art is experiential," Pip explained, guiding him through rooms where colors had texture and sounds cast shadows. "We don't just look at art, we participate in it." She handed him what looked like a paintbrush crossed with a tuning fork. "Try creating something." Marcus waved the implement cautiously. A line of blue light appeared in the air, humming softly. He moved it again, creating a simple geometric pattern that sang in harmonious tones. "Very Earth-like," Pip observed. "Structured, logical, safe. Now try feeling something while you paint." "Like what?" "Anything. Confusion, frustration, joy, terror. You've got plenty to choose from." Marcus thought about his situation. Married to 3 aliens, learning combat techniques that violated physics, being courted by sentient plants, and painted his bewilderment. The resulting artwork exploded into existence as a 3-dimensional maze of swirling colors that seemed to argue with themselves. It pulsed with anxiety, glowed with curiosity, and somehow managed to look confused in 17 different directions simultaneously. "Now that," Pip said with satisfaction, "is interesting art." Other visitors to the studio began gathering around Marcus's accidental masterpiece. Their ears created a symphony of colors: appreciation, curiosity, amusement. Someone started humming and the artwork began harmonizing with them. "It's responding to the audience," Marcus realized. "All art should," Pip replied. "What's the point of creation without connection?" That evening, they gathered in their shared quarters. Apparently, Zephyrian marriages involved cohabitation in expanded crystal dwellings that somehow had more rooms on the inside than the outside. "Successful first day of marriage," Kestra announced with military satisfaction. Subjects showed improvement in combat readiness and only caused 1 interdimensional incident. "The forest will recover," Zara added optimistically, her ears still faintly pink with embarrassment. "Though we may need to avoid that section during pollination season for the next few decades." "And I got 3 new art pieces," Pip concluded, "including one that achieved sentience and asked me to paint its portrait." Marcus sank into a chair that adjusted to his emotional state by becoming significantly softer. "This is my life now. Is that acceptance I hear?" Zara asked hopefully. Marcus looked at the 3 women, Kestra organizing defense schedules with military precision, Zara cataloging the day's botanical discoveries with scientific passion, Pip creating holographic replays of his various expressions of bewilderment. "I think," he said slowly, "it might be." 3 sets of ears perked up in synchronous hope, creating a pattern of colors that somehow looked like sunrise. Marcus learned about the political crisis the same way he'd learned about marriage, completely by accident and at the worst possible moment. He was practicing what Kestra called defensive quantum positioning when Lyrelay burst into their quarters with her ears flattened in distress. "We have a problem." "Just one?" Marcus asked, currently stuck in a temporal combat stance that left half his body 3 seconds ahead of the other half. That seems optimistic. Elder Vex has filed a formal challenge to the marriage law, Lyreley announced. He's claiming interspecies dilution of Zephyrian genetic purity. Kestra's ears snapped to alert Silver. Vex, that traditionalist fossil hasn't been relevant for decades. He is now. Half the Outer Rim colonies support him. They're demanding dissolution of all alien marriages. Pip's ears cycled through alarmed reds and oranges. Can he do that legally? If he can prove the marriages violate core Zephyrian values, yes. Marcus finally managed to get his temporal displacement synchronized. So what happens to me? Best case scenario, you return to Earth and we pretend this never happened, Lyreley said grimly. Worst case. Interplanetary incident, trade wars, and possible reclassification of humans as culturally toxic. Wonderful, Marcus muttered. How do we fight this? Zara bounced up from her research station, ears blazing with scientific determination. Evidence, data, proof that genetic diversity strengthens rather than weakens. She began pulling up holographic displays of complex molecular structures, DNA spirals, and what appeared to be mathematical proofs that made Marcus's eyes water. I've been researching interspecies compatibility for years. The data clearly shows. Nobody cares about data when politics are involved, Kestra interrupted. This is about power, not genetics. Then we fight strategically, Marcus said, surprising himself with his certainty. When's the formal hearing? 3 days, Lyreley replied. Before the full council, very public, very ceremonial. Perfect, Pip announced, her ears shifting to mischievous gold. I have ideas. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of preparation that somehow managed to be simultaneously organized and chaotic. Zara assembled her scientific evidence with manic enthusiasm, creating holographic presentations that were either brilliantly convincing or seizure-inducing. Kestra planned security protocols and backup strategies with military precision. Pip worked on what she mysteriously called visual advocacy. Marcus tried to write a diplomatic speech that wouldn't accidentally start a war. The full council chamber was a crystalline amphitheater that could hold thousands, and apparently had. Every seat was filled with Zephyrians whose ears created a constant shifting pattern of colors and movements, anticipation, concern, curiosity, and what Marcus hoped wasn't bloodlust. Elder Vex took the central platform first. He was ancient even by Zephyrian standards, his ears pale silver with age and rigid with conservative authority. Honored Council, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic crystals, we face contamination of our pure genetic heritage. This human, he gestured dismissively at Marcus, represents everything alien to our way of life. Define alien, Marcus muttered, earning a sharp elbow from Kestra. The law allowing interspecies marriage was passed hastily, without proper consideration of consequences, Vex continued. We risk diluting what makes us Zephyrian. The crowd's ears shifted toward agreeable blues and greens. Marcus felt his stomach sink into parallel dimensions. Then Zara took the platform. Honored Elder, she said sweetly, her ears glowing with barely contained excitement, you speak of genetic purity as if it's beneficial. May I present my research? Her holographic displays erupted into existence around the chamber. 3-dimensional DNA models, evolutionary trees, statistical analyses that painted the air in complex mathematical poetry. Genetic diversity strengthens species resistance to disease, environmental change, and evolutionary dead ends, she explained, her ears strobing with scientific passion. Pure bloodlines lead to stagnation and eventual extinction. The displays became increasingly elaborate. Molecular structures danced through the air, genetic sequences played as musical harmonies, and statistical probabilities manifested as colorful geometric patterns. Unfortunately, Zara's enthusiasm had triggered the building's holographic systems. Her presentation began expanding beyond her control, filling the entire chamber with swirling genetic information. Several elderly council members clutched their chairs as DNA helixes waltzed past their faces. "Turn it off," Vex shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of statistical analysis rendered as interpretive dance. "I can't," Zara called back happily. "It's achieved autonomous educational mode." Kestra stepped forward with military authority. "Allow me to address the security concerns," she announced, somehow making her voice carry over the chaos of rogue scientific visualization. "The presence of Ambassador Chen poses no threat to Zephyrian society," she declared. "I've conducted thorough tactical assessments." She began outlining security protocols with impressive precision, but her presentation included practical demonstrations. When she mentioned defensive techniques, holographic attackers materialized to show proper countermeasures. When she discussed strategic positioning, the chamber's architecture rearranged itself to illustrate optimal defensive layouts. "These are standard protective measures for high-value diplomatic assets," she explained as holographic warriors battled around the council members. "Are those explosions real?" someone shouted. "Only the educational ones," Kestra replied with professional calm. Elder Vex stood in the center of swirling scientific chaos and tactical demonstrations, his ears rigid with outrage. "This proves my point. Chaos follows these aliens." "Actually," Marcus said, standing up, "I think it proves something else entirely." The chamber fell silent, or as silent as it could be with autonomous genetic displays and educational warfare simulations still running in background mode. "Elder Vex, you're right that I'm different," Marcus continued. "I'm human, I'm confused most of the time, and I accidentally started a forest orgy yesterday." Pip's ears flashed with delighted gold. The crowd murmured with what sounded like appreciative laughter. "But difference isn't contamination," Marcus went on. "These three women, my wives, they don't make me less human, they make me more than I was before." He gestured toward Zara, whose scientific enthusiasm had taught him to see wonder in discovery. Toward Kestra, whose protective strength made him want to be worth protecting. Toward Pip, whose artistic vision showed him beauty in chaos. "Maybe that's what marriage is supposed to do," he said. "Not dilute what we are, but expand who we can become." The chamber was quiet except for the gentle hum of gradually fading holographic displays. Marcus could see thousands of ears in various states of contemplation. Then someone in the back began a slow, rhythmic clapping that sounded like gentle rain. Others joined until the entire chamber resonated with approval. Elder Vex's ears drooped in defeat. "The council will vote," he said stiffly. But Marcus could already see the decision in the sea of colorful ears around them: acceptance, curiosity, hope. "I think we won," Pip whispered, her ears cycling through the entire rainbow spectrum with joy. "We?" Marcus asked. "All of us," Zara said, her ears glowing with warm contentment. "The family unit is secure," Kestra added with military satisfaction. Marcus looked at his three wives and realized that somewhere between the forest orgy, the tactical training, and the holographic chaos, he'd stopped thinking of them as alien obligations and started thinking of them as home. "Yeah," he said, smiling as explosions of celebration fireworks began erupting throughout the chamber. "We won." The terrorist attack came at 3 a.m. Zephyrian Standard Time, which meant Marcus was awake anyway, because His Earth circadian rhythms had declared war on the twin-sun sleep cycle. The explosion shook their crystal dwelling like a tuning fork struck by an angry giant. Marcus rolled out of bed. A skill Kestra's combat training had finally made automatic, and found his 3 wives already in crisis mode. "Plasma charges in the diplomatic quarter," Kestra reported, her ears flat against her head in tactical alertness. "Multiple detonations. This is coordinated." Zara was frantically scanning the air with crystalline instruments. "Bioluminescent emergency beacons are activating citywide. The plants are going into defensive mode." "The art district is screaming," Pip added, her ears cycling through alarmed reds. "Literally. The sculptures are making sounds I've never heard before." Another explosion closer this time. The building's emergency crystals blazed to life, casting everything in harsh blue light. "Elder Vex?" Marcus asked. "No," Kestra said grimly. "Vex is traditionalist, not terrorist. This is someone else, someone who doesn't care about legal challenges." They made their way through corridors filled with panicking Zephyrians, their collective ear colors creating a strobe effect of fear and confusion. Outside, the diplomatic quarter looked like a war zone redesigned by abstract artists. Twisted crystal structures, emergency lighting that painted everything in surreal colors, and smoke that somehow glowed. "The bioemergency protocols," Zara suddenly exclaimed, her ears blazing with inspiration. "The city's defense systems, they're plant-based." "Can you access them?" Marcus asked. "Better than that, I can talk to them." She pulled out her botanical communication device and began what sounded like an intense conversation with nearby vegetation. The trees lining the streets immediately responded, their bioluminescence shifting from panicked orange to coordinated blue. "What are you telling them?" "To follow the bad smell," Zara replied cheerfully. "Terrorists always smell wrong to plants, different stress pheromones." Within minutes, the city's flora was conducting an olfactory investigation that would have impressed Earth's best tracking dogs. Vines began pointing in specific directions, flowers turned to follow scent trails, and the grass itself started forming arrows. "This way," a particularly large tree somehow communicated through Zara's device. They followed the botanical breadcrumbs through twisted streets, while Kestra maintained tactical formation, and Pip documented everything with artistic enthusiasm despite the ongoing explosions. "Found them," Zara announced as they reached a plaza where several figures in environmental suits were preparing another plasma charge. 5 targets, Kestra assessed quickly. "Standard terrorist loadout. Marcus, remember your training." "Which part? The temporal displacement or the interdimensional blocking?" "All of it now." What followed was the most surreal fight of Marcus's life. He found himself using combat techniques that existed in 3 different time streams, while his wife provided scientific support by convincing the local plant life to trip their attackers. Kestra moved with military precision, somehow managing to incapacitate terrorists while protecting everyone simultaneously. Pip contributed by projecting holographic confusion directly into their attacker's visual cortex. "Is that one terrorist trying to fight a hallucination of himself?" Marcus panted, currently blocking an attack that wouldn't happen for another 30 seconds. "Artistic interpretation of reality can be very disorienting," Pip replied happily, her ears flashing with creative satisfaction. When the dust settled and the terrorists were webbed in place by enthusiastic vines, Marcus realized something fundamental had changed. He wasn't thinking of himself as Earth's ambassador who happened to be married to aliens anymore. He was thinking of himself as part of a family that happened to include the most extraordinary women in 2-star systems. "You know," he said, as Zephyrian security forces arrived to collect the defeated terrorists, "6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be fighting interdimensional battles while married to 3 alien scientists, I'd have recommended therapy." "And now?" Zara asked, her ears glowing with warm affection. Now I'm wondering what took me so long to figure out that love doesn't follow diplomatic protocols. The actual wedding ceremony, held a week later, was everything Marcus had expected and nothing he could have prepared for. Zara had insisted on bioluminescent decorations, which attracted swarms of Zephyrian love beetles that hummed romantic harmonies and occasionally set things on fire with their passionate glowing. Kestra had designed security protocols that turned the celebration into what looked like a military operation disguised as a party, complete with escort formations and tactical positioning of the wedding cake. Pip had created artistic installations that were supposed to represent the unity of four hearts across space and time, but had achieved sentience and were now offering marriage counseling to other couples. The vows, Lyrelay prompted as Marcus stood before his three wives in the crystal amphitheater, now packed with well-wishers whose ears created a symphony of celebratory colors. Right, Marcus said, looking at Zara, Kestra, and Pip. I don't have traditional vows prepared because nothing about this has been traditional. He turned to Zara first. Zara, you taught me that the universe is full of wonders I never imagined, and that curiosity is the best way to navigate the impossible. Her ears glowed brilliant purple with joy. Kestra, you showed me that strength isn't just about protecting what you have, but about building something worth protecting. Her ears shifted to warm silver appreciation. Pip, you proved that chaos and beauty are the same thing viewed from different angles, and that laughter really can solve interdimensional crises. Her ears cycled through the entire rainbow spectrum in rapid, happy succession. And all three of you taught me that love multiplies instead of dividing. That difference is strength, and that family isn't about where you come from. It's about who you choose to become together. The crowd's harmonic approval made the crystal amphitheater ring like the universe's largest bell. Do you take these three women as your wives, according to Zephyrian law and Earth diplomatic protocol? Lyrelay asked formally. I do, Marcus said, and meant it in ways that transcended legal documents. Do you three take this human as your husband, for better or worse, in sickness and health, through interdimensional incidents and botanical emergencies? We do, they replied in unison, their combined ear colors creating patterns that looked like sunrise over three different worlds. Then by the power vested in me by the Zephyrian High Council and the authority of interstellar treaty, I pronounce you married across species, space, and common sense. The celebration that followed lasted 3 days and included events that would require new categories in Marcus's diplomatic reports. There were light symphonies that told their love story in colors visible from orbit, bioluminescent fireworks that achieved consciousness and started composing poetry, and a feast featuring dishes that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. On the third night, as they sat together watching the twin suns set over crystal spires while their wedding gifts, mostly sentient art and weaponized plants, organized themselves around their quarters, Marcus realized he was completely, impossibly happy. Any regrets? Pip asked, creating idle holographic sketches of their wedding day. Just one, Marcus said thoughtfully. 3 sets of ears perked up in concerned attention. I regret that it took a diplomatic crisis to teach me that the best adventures are the ones you never see coming. Zara's ears glowed with scientific satisfaction. That's actually a fundamental principle of quantum mechanics. The universe prefers elegant surprises. Tactically speaking, Kestra added, unplanned operations often yield the best results. And artistically, Pip concluded, the most beautiful things happen when you stop trying to control the outcome. Marcus pulled his 3 wives closer, marveling at how perfectly they fit together despite, or perhaps because of, their complete impossibility. Earth Command finally responded to my messages yesterday, he said. Oh, Zara asked. What did they say? Quote, request detailed report on diplomatic methods. Marriage appears highly effective for interspecies relations. Recommend expansion of program. End quote. They want more diplomatic marriages, Kestra asked. Apparently, I've accidentally started a new field of relationship-based diplomacy. Pip's ears flashed with delighted mischief. Think of all the confused ambassadors we could help train. Think of all the botanical emergencies we could prevent, Zara added enthusiastically. Think of all the tactical situations they'll need to survive, Kestra concluded with professional interest. Marcus laughed, a sound that harmonized with the crystal city around them and seemed to make the twin suns twinkle in response. I love you three, he said, using the Zephyrian ear language they'd taught him, which made their ears glow in synchronized patterns of pure joy. We love you too, they replied in English, their accent making the familiar words sound like music from distant stars. And as the sun set over Zephyria Prime, casting the crystal spires in colors that didn't exist on Earth, Marcus Chen, former Earth ambassador, current husband to 3 brilliant aliens, an accidental pioneer of interdimensional marriage, realized that sometimes the best diplomatic solutions are the ones nobody saw coming, especially when they involve love that transcends species, space, and every regulation in the book. The universe, as Pip often said, had excellent taste in happy endings.